List 25 has gone supersized. I've boosted my brain capacity to bring you 250 facts, 10 times your usual amount of fun, all in one video. So sit back, relax, and watch me push my voice to the breaking point as I give you the ultimate lowdown on movies, science, outer space, inner space, life hacks, food, world records, and all kinds of other crazy stuff in between. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are, 250 facts. It's also going to be a little bit different. That's a lot of facts, so I'm not going to say the number with everyone. Pasta reportedly boils faster if you do it in a frying pan. Just watch the water doesn't scald you. A giant 24-foot high McDonald's shake was poured into the Chicago River in 2010 on St. Patrick's Day. This was the popular mint-flavored Shamrock Shake, and the jumbo version was created to celebrate a $10,000 charity donation to Ronald McDonald House. Despite women not being allowed to race in the Boston Marathon at the time, Roberta Gibb managed to take part in 1966. The rules wouldn't be relaxed for another 6 years. Did you know that Yahoo isn't just a cool-sounding name? It's also an acronym, meaning yet another hierarchical officious oracle. Yeah, we've had our fill of those, right? You can apparently remove a deep splinter in your skin by applying the mushy part of a banana peel to it. Yuck. Wrap it around the area like a band-aid and the splinter eventually comes out. This isn't a guaranteed fix, but some people really recommend it. Another mad medical fact, coconut water doubles as emergency blood plasma. Mad Max director George Miller funded the production of the movie by working as a doctor in an ER. This helped with the bloody mayhem presented on screen. There is only one place in America that grows coffee beans, and that's Hawaii. Everything else comes from other countries, which is actually pretty amazing given that the country basically runs on caffeine. 146 billion cups of coffee are consumed by Americans every year. This epic stat maybe isn't that surprising, but I'll tell you what is. People have always enjoyed engaging in physical combat, so no wonder wrestling is among the oldest sports on the planet. Experts believe it dates back to 708 BCE as an Olympic sport. The surface of your washer can double as a whiteboard. Just make sure the pen isn't going to leave a permanent mark before you try this, though. The Amish aren't as traditional as you think. They use computers, but strictly for stuff like word processing and admin. No way are you getting Netflix up there. The computer mouse dates back all the way to 1964. It was a block of wood on wheels. Speaking of wild technology, the water integrator was a computer created by the Russians in 1936. They say water and electricity shouldn't mix. Well, this computer was powered by water. Your pinky finger is stronger than it looks. It reportedly plays a major role in gripping strength. The percentage has been worked out at 33%. Before 2011, beer was considered a soft drink in Russia. We only found out who the killer was in Twin Peaks because the network forced them to reveal it in the second season. Technically, there's some of Africa under the ground in the United States. This is part of Pangaea, an epic continent from which our 7 continents originate. The 250 million-year-old remnant, which was found in 2014, is reportedly close to Alabama. We associate the Olympics with being hosted by one country, but that wasn't always the case. In 1920, the Summer Olympics took place in Belgium and the Netherlands. Later in 1956, Melbourne hosted most of the games and Stockholm handled the equestrian activities. The tuberish bush cricket has testicles so large they take up 14% of its body mass. I don't know, one of those things are noisy. If you place a stocking over the end of your vacuum cleaner and secure it in place with a rubber band, it becomes a great tool for finding tiny items dropped on the floor. The vacuum sucks it up, but the nylon holds the little fella in position. Google has their grass cut by goats. They reportedly hire a couple of hundred goats as hairy gardeners. The Nazis discovered Catherine the Great's erotic furniture. These featured X-rated carvings, though I can't recall any penis furniture in the TV show with Elle Fanning. Meanwhile, Mozart had a dirty sense of humor and would often put jokes about bodily functions into his compositions. Natural flavoring contains a chemical extracted from a beaver's rear end. An amateur school production of Alien was so successful that Sigourney Weaver herself turned up to watch it after the publicity went viral. Roe River in Montana is officially the world's shortest river at approximately 200 feet. Fans of skiing and ballet used to have their own special competitive sport. Ski ballet was all the rage for some on the snow until 2000. You may have gotten the impression that hippos can swim because they spend their time in water. It's actually not the case. They stay in the water, but on the bottom like a scene out of The Little Mermaid. Watch out though, because they need to come out frequently in order to fill their lungs. A staple remover doesn't just remove staples, you can also pry open a keyring with it, saving yourself broken nails or unnecessary cuts trying to use your fingers. We have the QWERTY keyboard system partly due to issues with old machinery. The system was intended to prevent keys jamming, something that would happen if the board ran A to Z and you typed super fast. Thomas Edison filmed the first ever cat video in 1894, and it put today's cat videos to shame because it featured a feline boxing match complete with boxing gloves. Animal welfare wasn't the biggest concern back then. Edison was a big figure in electricity, though sometimes the power gets cut and you're left in the dark. Run out of candles? Well, reach for your art supplies. You can light up a crayon for a quick and easy source of illumination. When people become parents, their brains change. In fact, they shrink. For example, a study published in 2023 showed that things such as visual processing were reduced in fathers. Brain training is all good, but you apparently start losing it in the mental department at 24. Yep, 24. A 2014 study revealed that not only do you slow down in your 20s, your cognitive speed decreases by approximately 15% every 15 years. Cantaloupe can be surprisingly expensive. The sought-after Yubari melon is one example. 2 of them were sold for over $27,000 in Japan in 2016. The North Pole isn't a landmass, but a sheet. Well, they call it a sheet, but it's actually around 3 miles deep. In geography terms, though, that's pretty thin. A snail looks squishy, but not all of it is like that. There is the shell, of course, but I'm talking about the teeth. And it doesn't just have a few chompers. I'm talking thousands and thousands of them. Gum on the carpet? Don't worry, it's cool. No, really, it's cool. Cold, in fact. Freeze the gum with ice cubes for 30 minutes. The hardened gum then breaks right off. Oh, and by the way, did you know Back to the Future started out as a story about a time-traveling refrigerator? That was until Steven Spielberg raised objections because he didn't want kids locking themselves in fridges. So they used a DeLorean instead. The biggest number of pencils that can fit in a beard is 59. This feat was achieved within a minute by Joel Strasser in 2021. Nokia is more than just a cell phone company. They've been around since 1865. They started out as a paper mill. If you've ever called a Nokia phone a piece of crap, then get this, they made toilet paper. One small step for man, one small urination for mankind. Buzz Aldrin had a malfunction in his spacesuit, meaning that when he needed to go, he basically wet his pants. Not that you'd particularly care in that situation. You may know about astronaut Alan Shepard, who played golf on the moon in 1971. Well, did you know about Edgar Mitchell? Part of the same mission, Mitchell picked up a staff and threw it like a javelin on the lunar surface. You can't really damage your weenus by massaging it. That's the piece of loose skin on your elbow, by the way. There are approximately 540 peanuts on average in a jar of peanut butter. Harvey Keitel was originally cast in the lead role for Apocalypse Now. After a while, director Francis Ford Coppola realized he wasn't right and replaced him with Martin Sheen. A key reason appears to be that Keitel wasn't happy filming in the jungle, something that Keitel himself denies. People call it Bangkok. However, that's just the quick version. You want to know the real name? It's a staggering 21 words long. Krumtet Mahanakon Aman Ratanikosin Mahintara Yutataya Mahadilok Pop Naparat Ratachani Buriram Udon Rachani Wet Mahasatan Aman Piman Awatan Satit Sakatitai Watsini Komprasit. There's an important reason that the grass at Wimbledon is approximately 8 millimeters. Any longer, and snakes might get in and start biting the players. This actually happened in 1949. Giraffes have an unusual and pretty disgusting way to prepare for sexy times. The male tastes the urine of the female. If it's good and pheromone-y, then she's ready to impregnate. You can get paint off a carpet using something called denatured alcohol. This is basically souped up ethanol. If you're not in the US, you'll know it as methylated spirits. Rub your rag on the carpet and it should remove the problem paint. It's also recommended that you choose a rag that's the same color as the carpet to avoid bleeding. There's a McDonald's in Arizona with turquoise arches. Yellow arches were thought to draw attention away from the landscape. Charles Dickens nearly lost his classic novel Our Mutual Friend in a train crash. The train went over a bridge, as in nose first. The manuscript for the book was in the wreckage, but he went back and got it. Almost a third of your skeleton is made up of water. Plus, you have soft tissue inside your bones called bone marrow. The old song lyric about dry bones, well, it's not quite accurate. For a while, a company called Cannon Films owned the movie rights to Spider-Man, but they misunderstood the idea. They were going to make a movie about a man who literally turns into a spider. And speaking of genetic weirdness, we have similar DNA to bananas. All living things are similar in some ways, but with bananas, there's reportedly over a 60% match. Go apple, go orange, go banana. If you're wondering how fast a continent can move, well then, look at your fingernails. The speed is comparable. Something to think about the next time they need a trim. Women only began competing at the Olympics in 1900s, which is incredible given that the Olympics has its origins thousands of years ago. If something is unfortunate enough to meet a Venus flytrap, it isn't a guaranteed death sentence. This deadly plant will actually count the number of times its potential victim disturbs the hairs on its leaves. If it happens twice in 20 seconds, then snap. You can use lint from the dryer to start a fire, as in a nice safe fire in an outdoor location with proper supervision. In the Garden of Eden, Eve was originally tempted by a fig, not an apple, according to early Christian art. Speaking of which, wasps lay their eggs inside figs. A fig typically contains wasp DNA. The Mozilla Firefox logo looks like a fox. I mean, why wouldn't it? However, it actually depicts a red panda. Iconic nurse Florence Nightingale was a crazy cat lady. She adopted approximately 60 of them. Also, she had an owl which she trained to playfully attack her own sister. Identical twins share everything, including the same smell. A scientific study from 2008 showed that body odor and genetics are linked. Parmesan cheese contains some wood pulp, or to be more precise, cellulose, which is a wood-based filler ingredient. Super Mario Bros. Stars Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo were reportedly drunk making the movie. The experience was allegedly so stressful that they needed to hit the bottle. Approximately 700 new species of animals are found in Brazil every year. While a golf ball is hard enough to cause a serious injury, you might be surprised to know the core is actually made of rubber. A bullet once ricocheted off an armadillo with nasty consequences for the shooter. How did you shoot yourself in the face? Oh, my bullet hit an armadillo. It's a crazy but true explanation. However, I should say this isn't the norm and that you can cause harm to an armadillo by shooting it. You can de-wrinkle light clothing such as shirts by adding ice cubes. After you've washed your clothes, put some ice cubes in the dryer. The resulting steam smooths out the fabric. You don't have to wait 24 hours before reporting a missing person. The first 3D printed building in the world is in Dubai. The Bayeux Tapestry is not actually a tapestry. It's a piece of embroidery. Plus, it's known for being a fictionalized version of what happened in 1066 at the Battle of Hastings. Your heart is designed to last a lifetime without flagging. The cordyceps fungi can infect and control ants before finally overwhelming and destroying them. While this horrific act is happening, the ant is basically a zombie. Ants are roasted and spiced as an alternative to cinema popcorn in Colombia. Darth Vader actor David Prowse revealed the ending in The Empire Strikes Back during a media interview. This was way before the second, or fifth, depending on your level of fandom, movie was released, with Prowse commenting on the general direction of the story. Star Wars creator George Lucas was not happy, and reportedly banned Prowse from public events. If Pluto fell out of the sky and landed on Russia, then Russia could actually take it. The country has a larger surface area than a whole planet, at 17.1 square kilometers. Here's a bone-chilling fact. They originally used animal bones to make the blades in figure skating. When they say a skater killed it on ice, well, maybe they weren't kidding. Is it possible for a shrimp to interfere with a submarine? Incredibly, it is. The pistol shrimp rivals Thanos in terms of its snap. The claw of the pistol shrimp forms only part of its 2-centimeter long body, yet can do a lot of damage in both the human and animal kingdom. If you have trouble fitting a bucket in the sink to fill it, then you can bridge the gap with a dustpan. The wide front and grooved handle mean the water flows into the scoop and along the handle groove out into the bucket. 7-Up used to be prescribed as an antidepressant. The Shanghai Tower has an elevator that moves at 40 miles an hour. Gladiators in ancient Rome fought to the death, but only sometimes. The gladiator business could be compared to modern sport today. Huge amounts of money were involved, so it made no sense to invest in the gladiator only to have them slaughtered in their first fight. You get taller as you sleep. This is because your cartilage has room to stretch out. Your body grows by approximately a centimeter, though you go back to regular height after you get up and the cartilage is compressed. French fries are Belgian. They were first cooked there in the 17th century. The Batman character Harley Quinn doesn't come from the comic books. She was specially created for the animated series in the 90s before going on to appear in 3 movies played by Margot Robbie. A cloud weighs 1,000,000 tons. Really? I mean, they look so light and fluffy. Grunting is a major part of tennis these days. So, it doesn't surprise me to learn that Maria Sharapova's noises rivaled an aircraft in volume. Barn owls are known to have breakups. The female flies the nest, leaving the male to look after the family. Which is totally unfair because he was the one who slept with the bald eagle in the first place. Uncooked spaghetti makes a great emergency candle lighter if you need to reach down real low to get that wick going. A casino company paid $28,000 for a partially eaten grilled cheese sandwich. Apparently, it looked like the Virgin Mary. There's a 61-mile-long conveyor belt in the Sahara Desert. Mammoths still walked the earth at the time of the pyramids. Earwax isn't wax. It's a nasty gunk made by your oil and sweat gland, which also features dead skin and cholesterol. Bet you're glad you ate so much of that as a kid, right? Arachibutyrophobia is the fear of peanut butter, specifically getting it stuck to the roof of your mouth. Movie trailers started in 1913. Also, they came after the film, meaning they trailed it. That's where the name comes from, which really makes sense when you think about it. There are 3 countries within countries: Vatican City and San Marino in Italy, plus Lesotho in South Africa. They're referred to as Enclaved countries. Out of these, the city-state of Vatican City is the smallest country on the planet. It covers just 121 acres. When boxers take a break during a match, they're doing more than relaxing. They aim their gloves down, which lets blood flow into their arms. Otherwise, they'd be in big trouble. If a male penguin gives a female penguin a pebble, it's more than just an ordinary day in the Arctic. Pebbles are pretty special to the famous little creatures, so what you're saying is the closest thing to romance you can get in the animal kingdom. A made-up condition called bicycle face was used to prevent women from riding bikes and feeling too independent. Hot water freezes faster than cold water. It sounds weird, but the evaporation when you place hot water in a super cold environment results in a lower amount of liquid, which is quicker and easier to freeze. The shortest war in history lasted approximately 40 minutes. This was the Anglo-Zanzibar War, which took place on August 27, 1896. The most intelligent human on the planet is believed to be Marilyn Vos Savant. She has an IQ of 228. Chocolate was historically used as money by the ancient Aztecs. I mean, I've been in a few sticky financial situations in my time, but this is something else. English actor and screen legend David Warner was originally cast as Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street, but had to drop out. Images of the test makeup are out there to scare the heck out of you online. Because it was constructed on a lake hundreds of years ago, Mexico City is on the way down. As it drains the natural water supply below, the city gradually sinks, dropping it by approximately 3 feet every year. Now, Mexico City is going down, but the Himalayas are going up. They're growing at a rate of 5 millimeters per year. This is due to tectonic plates colliding underneath. The Steagles were a super team of players from the Pittsburgh Steelers and Philadelphia Eagles American football teams. They joined forces in 1943 because of their heavily depleted numbers. Because, there was a little thing called World War II going on at the time. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way. Onions make you cry. Or rather, they don't if you give the irritating onion mist somewhere else to go. A wet paper towel placed beneath the onion as you chop should do the job nicely. 7% of Americans believe you get chocolate milk from brown cows. Probably milkshake if you shake them. A spacesuit is surprisingly expensive. NASA can make one for a cool $12 million, at least in 1970s money. They're using decades-old suits. A new one would cost approximately $150 million. It appears people with disabilities were treated differently by society over 30,000 years ago. A 10 and 12-year-old boy were given a prestigious burial in Russia with precious items. One had issues with his bones, and the other was confined to bed, according to a study that remains. You have approximately 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day. Lipstick contains crushed betel acid. The longest film ever made is 85 hours. It's called The Cure for Insomnia and was released in 1987. And I'm guessing the title was accurate. Earth didn't always look the way it does, with continents being formed over thousands of years. That process is still happening, with North America and Asia drawing closer together over time. This is reducing the size of the Pacific little by little. It's physically impossible for a high jumper to stay in the air for longer than a single second. Polar bears aren't white. It's just the way they reflect the light. Their fur is translucent. Meanwhile, their skin is black. Using the font Comic Sans helps you type better. You take the silly font less seriously, whereas with serious fonts like Arial, you're too anxious about making mistakes. Henry Gunther died in World War I, 1 minute before the conflict officially ended. If you want peace and quiet, go to space. It's the ultimate destination for meditators, librarians, and other quiet-loving types because it's completely silent due to the lack of atmosphere. Before the late 15th century, all children were called girls. The word could apply to either sex. You're more likely to make mistakes while multitasking because the human brain can only effectively focus on one task at a time. What you see as multitasking is actually juggling single tasks. You can hallucinate if you eat enough nutmeg. Nintendo's Mario was originally supposed to be Popeye the Sailor Man. If the original plan fell into place, it would be Super Popeye World. Because the rights couldn't be obtained for the character, Mario was created instead. Speaking of Nintendo, they haven't always been a video game company. They originally produced playing cards. The gaming side of the business started in 1975, nearly a century after the company was founded. Mount Everest isn't the highest mountain. It's the highest above sea level. The mightiest mountain overall is Mauna Kea in Hawaii. This exists both overground and underground. At 32,808 feet, Mauna Kea licks Everest by 3,000 feet. If you feel you're not so great at sports, here's a stat that'll comfort you. The great Shaquille O'Neal missed 5,317 free throws during his time as a basketball player. He's still the best, but it shows the pros make mistakes like anyone else. Sand theft is a serious problem. Huge quantities of sand were dug up and removed when no one was watching. A whole beach was stolen in Jamaica in 2008. Want to know if a battery's dead? Why not try bouncing it? Apparently, if it bounces like a ball, you need to change it. Be careful though, because batteries famously have acid inside. Henry Sieglin died when a bullet flew out of an exploding tree and killed him. The bullet was in the tree because someone had tried to shoot Sieglin years earlier. Mission successful? The moon has thousands of craters. They cover the vast majority of its surface. It's been worked out that just over 4.5% of the moon's geography is crater-free. Hitler rode around in a train called America. Yes, it was named after America, who were his enemies. One person not on board for the ride was his nephew. William Patrick Stewart Houston would fight for the Allies against his crazy uncle during World War II. You could apparently ease vertigo by placing an ice pack against the base of your skull in the area between your ears and the top of your neck. Don't exceed 20 minutes or you might get frostbite. Consult a medical professional over any home remedy. World of Warcraft helped medical science. The character of contagion spreader Hakar was studied by scientists in connection with real-life outbreaks and their transmission. So the next time someone accuses you of sitting on your butt playing video games, tell them that story. Alaska is found both in the west and the east of the United States. In fact, it's the furthest state in either direction. It stretches into the eastern hemisphere from the west. Meanwhile, Africa occupies the northern, southern, eastern, and western hemispheres, the only continent to do so. A boxing match that lasted 110 rounds and went on for over 7 hours? That's just the way they did things back in 1893. This is the longest such fight in sporting history, and unsurprisingly, it ended in a no contest. If boxing sounds a little too brutal for you, then maybe you should try chess boxing? Unbelievable though it may seem, this is an actual cross between chess and boxing. Several 100 million years ago, the Earth had a covering of giant mushrooms. Reminds me of the first level of Sonic and Knuckles. You can kind of trap a Kindle library rental by setting your device to airplane mode. Technically, this gives you all the time in the world to read the book, though you'll have to keep it in that setting, otherwise it'll disappear. Did you know that cheese develops a stronger flavor if you play music to it? In 2019, Emmental Cheese was the audience for a playlist including varied artists such as Mozart and Led Zeppelin. Sound travels faster through water than air. The dense particles in water are better for sound to travel. Without our atmosphere, we wouldn't see twinkling stars. It's an effect of starlight passing through the barrier between us and space. The word y'all dates back to 1631. When bodies are cremated, a machine called a cremulator is used to ensure that everything is ground up nice and fine. Ranch dressing is white because it contains titanium dioxide. This chemical compound is also used in white paint. Basically, it's dyed. Larry David saved a murder suspect from jail. Juan Catalan was accused of the killing of a teenage girl, but Curb Your Enthusiasm helped his case in court. Cameras had captured Catalan at a Dodgers game where the crew was filming. This backed up Catalan's side of the story and cleared his name. The largest desert in the world is actually in Antarctica. Olympic gold medals only contain 1.3% of gold, and that's a ballpark figure, so to speak. What you're actually holding is a silver medal with added gold. The biggest number of snails you can balance on your face is 48. We know this because Mike Dalton did it on national TV in Australia, balancing the snails for 10 seconds in 2009. You can remove the stink of garlic or onions on fingers by rubbing stainless steel on them. It won't take it away 100%, but hey, it beats washing your hands several hundred times. The oldest hybrid car is from 1900. It was called the Semper Vivis and was produced by Lohner Porsche. The vehicle ran on both electricity and gas, or petrol, depending on where you're from. Mars is rusty. The planet gets its red color from iron oxide, just like what you get on old cars and other items at the scrapyard. There was once a dog in the White House called Satan. He belonged to the second president, John Adams. We make 95% of our decisions subconsciously. We partly enjoy spicy food because of a release of endorphins. This is triggered by the compound capsaicin. The chemical kind of fools you into thinking you're eating something dangerous, and the pleasure-packed endorphins come in by way of response. Ozark was filmed in Georgia, not Missouri. They apparently preferred it that way, as Georgia offered a variety of locations. Plus, the state offers income tax credits to producers. America has the most volcanoes in the world. That's in total, both active and inactive. Jogging became a thing stateside because of one James Fix, so it's a real shame that he died doing what he loved, i.e. jogging. Tragically, he was just 52 years old. A Venus flytrap can eat human flesh. Thankfully, there's no evidence that a plant is able to trap and eat a full-size person. You shouldn't wear canvas shoes in wet conditions, right? Wrong. Apparently, by applying beeswax to canvas shoes, you can protect them against water. Christmas was banned in Massachusetts between 1630 and 1856. Ho ho ho, pilgrims. One of the strangest things in space is an exoplanet dubbed the Marshmallow Planet. Also known as WASP 107b, it has a surprisingly low density. Maybe it's getting toasted by the sun. The first woman of color to deliver mail in America was a formidable character known as Stagecoach Mary, aka Mary Field. Dunbar's number dictates that a person can have a maximum of 150 friends. There's a chemical in pineapple that's strong enough to tenderize meat. It's called bromelain. The Beatles are arguably the greatest band of all time, so it's incredible that none of them could read music. They relied on creativity and instinct to produce their incredible back catalog of classics. Redheads apparently have a higher pain threshold than other people. The water in Florida can turn red due to algae. Good old red tide. Do you know where the word soccer comes from? Interestingly, it's a shortened version of association. So technically it should be called saucer? Also, it's originally British. The tallest dog in the world is a Great Dane named Zeus. He measures at 1.118 meters in height. Meanwhile, Napoleon was actually average height at 5'6". You can use a walnut to buff out scratches in your furniture. Nut oil is great for getting rid of scratch marks. Rub the walnut on the problem area and then rub it again with a gentle fabric. The youngest mother in history was 5 years old. Her name was Lina Medina from Peru. Waves can be square. This powerful reaction happens when two seas intersect and the water mass turns into a grid. During World War II, the French resistance would hide secret information in baguettes. The New York Times once reported that someone's eyeball popped out when they sneezed. When you sneeze, it reboots the cells in your nostrils. 57 cow brains were eaten in 15 minutes, a gruesome meal that broke a world record in Japan in 2002. Sean Connery wanted to make a crazy James Bond movie called Warhead, which featured remote-control robot sharks carrying nukes. Shaken, but not splashed. Speaking of Jaws, dental floss can double as a cake slice. As long as you don't use the minty fresh kind, everything should be, well, a piece of cake. Australia is a laid-back country and has its laid-back volcanoes. The last recorded eruption on the continent was around 5,000 years ago. Animals cry to lubricate their eyes, not because they're emotional. Toothpaste can remove crayon from a wall. Also, if used before meals, it can reduce your ability to taste sweet things while boosting your sense of taste for bitter food and drink. A Hollywood actress helped develop Wi-Fi. Hedy Lamarr discovered frequency hopping technology, which went on to become a stepping stone to the internet access we enjoy today. Nitrogen gas is used to remove the oxygen from chip packets. Oxygen makes your chips go bad. Henry VIII had a personal toilet, and someone needed to carry it around for them. This job title was called Groom of the Stool. We used to have a third eyelid. That little pink triangle in the corner of your eye is what remains of it. The herb cilantro can only be tasted and appreciated by a small percentage of humans, me included. Everyone else thinks it tastes like soap. The classic Rolling Stones track, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, came to Keith Richards in a dream. He described waking up in the night, recording the opening, and then going right back to sleep. He left the tape running and recorded his own snoring. The game of volleyball predates the actual volleyball itself. It started with players using a basketball bladder. Another crazy sports fact, the first puck in ice hockey was something you probably didn't want to hit too hard. Why? Well, because it was a frozen chunk of cow poo. Now, you definitely want a frozen cow patty rather than a regular one, but bona fide hockey pucks are also placed in the deep freeze. This way they glide well and don't bounce as much. You can walk between America and Russia thanks to our old buddy ice. You can do this by crossing a frozen stretch of water between two islands. Chameleons change color for social reasons, not to blend into their environment. You can easily remove pet hair with your hands. Just put on a pair of wet rubber gloves and watch that fuzz disappear. Adolf Hitler once tried to kill Winston Churchill with exploding chocolate, though he might not need to have tried so hard. You see, Winston Churchill had a lot of accidents. These included being hit by a car, being involved in a plane crash, almost drowning in a lake, and falling off a bridge. Although that last one wasn't actually an accident, he deliberately threw himself over the edge and damaged his kidney as a result. The radio waves we've created form a shield around the planet, protecting us from stuff like solar flares. The Wild West really wasn't all that wild. You could certainly be killed if you weren't careful, however the image presented in movies and such is pretty over-dramatized. Your tongue never gets tired. How much does all the internet in the world weigh? Amazingly, it's the same as an apricot. That's a juicy fact for you. Star Trek was once interrupted by a real-life space mission. The iconic Apollo 11 moon landings from 1969 were complained about by some who wanted to watch their scheduled episode of Trek instead. William Shatner auctioned his kidney stone, which sold for $25,000. Jordan's capital, Amman, used to be called Philadelphia. In the 3rd century BCE, it was taken over by King Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Egypt. Minoru Yoshida, a Japanese athlete, managed to complete 10,507 push-ups in one session in 1980. Is this the biggest number of continuous push-ups in history? What do you think? Female sharks have developed thicker skins to cope with males biting them during sex. Tomato sauce doesn't beat the smell of a skunk. It'll just make it smell like tomatoes. Stinky doesn't always mean bad. Take dung beetles, for example, who use the stars to get around. How do we know this? Because in 2013 it was observed that on a cloudy night, the beetles seem to not know where to go. Yet when the stars are out, they scuttle with confidence. There's a crossbow firing competition at Oktoberfest. Some believe that the moon is hollow. Speaking of moon madness, the US government once thought about nuking the moon in order to intimidate the Russians. It's Pandora's jar, not Pandora's box. The original narrative featured a jar, however it was mistranslated in the 16th century. Do you have a problem jar you can't open? Well, try spanking it, as in turning it upside down and giving the base a slap. This will apparently knock out the vacuum and make the lid looser. Your hair is strong enough to hold the weight of 2 elephants. We only have vanilla Twinkies because banana supplies ran low during World War II and they needed another flavor. Before anyone had heard of a xenomorph, the original director of Alien, Robert Aldrich, wanted a shaved orangutan as the alien. This bizarre suggestion was an attempt at thinking outside the box. Aldrich left the project to be replaced by Ridley Scott, and the rest is history. There are 840 languages spoken in Papua New Guinea. The Olympics is a celebration of sport, but only a tiny fraction of sports from around the world. It covers approximately 30, whereas the total number is more like 8,000. Manatees stay afloat by farting. Natural light makes you more productive. Tom Hanks discovered he was related to Mr. Rogers, but only after playing him in a movie. Human blood is almost as salty as seawater. There's a 98% match between the two. Mount Rushmore is spectacular. It's also unfinished. We were supposed to see the presidents from head to waist, but the team ran out of money. 60% of your brain is fat. Your body can produce its own alcohol via something called autobrewery syndrome. Caviar used to be served for free in bars to make people thirsty. This was in America, where the luxury food took a while to catch on. They nearly made a Batman movie in the 80s with Bill Murray as Bruce Wayne and David Bowie as the Joker. This was back when Ghostbusters' Ivan Reitman wanted to direct. The film went through various stages of development before we got the 1989 version from Tim Burton. Speaking of Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2 underwent extensive reshoots after the first cut got negative feedback from test audiences. Much was changed, including the ending, which had failed to impress fans. Australia used to be called New Holland. It became Australia in the 19th century. The oldest base jumper in the world was 84-year-old Donald Cripps. He fell 876 feet from the New River Gorge Bridge in West Virginia in 2013. Hippos nearly became part of the food chain in America in the early 20th century. A meat shortage led to these magnificent and muddy beasts being considered as a solution. As you may have guessed, the idea didn't catch on. Probably for the best, because hippos are incredibly dangerous. It may not look that way, but they're fast, aggressive, and unpredictable. Some estimates place the human death toll by hippo each year at 3,000. A slice of cucumber held against the roof of your mouth is good for bad breath. As long as you don't choke on it, everything should be fine. There was a Harley-Davidson perfume and cologne range. They reportedly made you smell of wood and tobacco. On a bike-related note, the Hells Angels sued Disney for using their name and logo in the 2007 movie Wild Hogs. Also, did you know that Frasier nearly didn't happen? Producers wanted to make a whole new sitcom with Kelsey Grammer. What was it about? A paraplegic millionaire who loved motorbikes. When that fell through, they revisited Frasier Crane, which was a lot more successful. The metaverse was first mentioned in a 1992 novel called Snow Crash. Saddam Hussein was given the keys to Detroit in 1980 because of his generosity supporting a local hospital. Yes, Saddam. Different times. There are approximately 100,000 viruses in our DNA. There's a pizza that costs over $12,000. It's called the Louis XIII and has toppings including caviar, lobster, and gold. Not to mention the traditional mozzarella cheese. Actor and comedian Dana Carvey worked with Mike Myers on Wayne's World and Michael Myers in Halloween 2. He wasn't credited, but believe me, he's there. Party on, Garth. And there you have it. 250 facts. Which was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell, do all that. Check out our new channel, Dark Roast Detectives. Check out other videos on this channel. Just do it all. Help support us. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I am out. That was a lot of facts.